Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Nina Ha. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the director of the APIDA Plus Center here in Squires. This is APIDA Heritage Month. We celebrate APIDA Heritage Month in April because in May, many of you are already gone. So I'm really excited to be featuring CNRE students. For APIDA Heritage Month, and I really look forward to having, listening, learning more about you all and having a conversation with you. So, Jarek, I am going to just hand it over to you.
Cool. Yeah. Hopefully it can be okay.
Yes.
So I'm Jared Campbell. I use he, him pronouns. I work in the College of Natural Resources. Before I worked in the College of Natural Resources, I was a student in the College of Natural Resources. I majored in geography and I got my master's in that. And then I graduated and now I'm working as the assistant director of recruitment. Before I got this job though, like all these folks up here, I was a CNRE ambassador. So I had chances to speak at panels and talk to prospective students and families and things like that. And now I'm in charge of all the people who get to do that. So I'm super excited to be joined by some lovely ambassadors and I'll let them introduce themselves. And then I think we can jump into questions. So, cool.
Sure. Should I look that way or? Okay. Hi, I'm Smriti. I'm a senior and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm majoring in environmental conservation and society with a minor in Blue Planet.
I'm Jessica Bullock. I'm currently a junior. I'm majoring in meteorology and minoring in GIS and Japanese.
I'm a Victoria Yoneni. I'm a sustainable biomaterials major. I'm a senior and I'm double minoring in green engineering and residential.
And I think we could get to know everybody in the room. If y'all don't mind introducing yourselves, just what your name is, what you're studying, and maybe why you're here, what your interest is with the CNRE, what you hope to gain from this conversation, I think would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm Matt. I'm a grad student in the math department.
Thanks.
And so then the job market soon, and I'm just hoping to not just silo myself to academic careers.
Yeah, cool. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
I'm Dawn. I am majoring in computer science undergrad, and I am just interested in seeing about new opportunities and hearing about where I can go from there.
Cool. Thanks for being here.
Hello, I'm Min. I'm also computer science. I'm a PhD student. I'm here to learn about what I can do 2 years later after graduation.
Nice.
Here, Bella. I'm a freshman packaging major, and I was really interested in hearing about the CNRE panel at APIDA Center, and I saw Rebecca was there, and I was like, wow, it's so good. And you guys are going to be great speakers.
They're in the same department.
I haven't met you yet.
Well, cool. Yeah, so I think that we can start this conversation and, we've got some questions that we'll just kind of talk about. And this is y'all's story, so I want y'all to take this way. And if I can help or supplement in any way, just let me know. But yeah, so we've got some questions, but along the way, if anyone has questions or needs clarification or whatnot, we're more than happy to do that. So we'll jump into these questions. I think that it might help at first to kind of talk about what the College of Natural Resources is, rather than just jumping straight into these questions, because I think a lot of people have some stereotypes and misconceptions about natural resources and what that means, and especially what it means to study that in college. So that kind of relates to one question. So I'd ask the ambassadors on the panel to describe a little bit more about what you do and how that's different than maybe what some folks think. So the question is, it's a funny question. I'm glad that we came up with this one, because I get this all the time. What else do you do in the CNRE besides walk through the woods and look at animals? We have some folks over here who do very different things than that. So, what do you do? And yeah, what do you do in the college?
Okay, so as a meteorology major, we actually don't go outside that much. We have a professor who does lead some outdoors trips to do weather instrumentation on top of mountains. But if you want to go outside and do that fun stuff, that's mostly done when you complete your field work with meteorology. Usually though, we're inside looking at weather models or understanding concepts about the atmosphere and I don't know, it's just really interesting. You meet with a lot of professionals, you do a lot of networking, alumni, all that stuff.
Feel like mine is a little bit more of the traditional, like, go outside and look at animals kind of thing. More so plants than animals, but I think, especially in like my major with conservation and society being the thing, you learn a lot about the people aspect, which is really interesting. We talk about like real life problems. I took a class called Outdoor Recreation and Management. I don't think that's the exact title, but close enough. But we learned a lot about like communities that need that outdoor recreation and like how it could benefit them and how we can implement that in like a better way. So you get a lot of different things too, other than just tromping in the woods, which is very fun, but it's not all of it.
I would say my experience has also, it's not been very traditional with sustainable biomaterials. A lot of it is, we have classes, we have a few labs, we have our own Brooks Research Center out in CRC, so a lot of our labs will happen there. And then for the Aspire department specifically, we have our own wood workshop. So some of the classes are like introductory classes where we learn how to make like a table for each one of us. Or we have a few like physics-based classes, like mechanics of SBio and packaging. So we're currently building a bridge in our lab and we'll be like testing out how much force it can sustain. For a lot of our classes aren't just the typical like go outside, nature, or anything of that sort. There are classes that can be taken by like engineering majors or architecture majors, like anyone outside of the department as well.
I think that's a great segue, because another question we have is, what kind of classes would y'all recommend someone outside of the CNRE take? What are some fun ones you really loved in your major, or maybe outside of your major, that you'd recommend anyone from engineering or computer science or whatever it might be to take?
I mean, I think the weather is cool, which is why I'm majoring in it, and I think everyone should have like kind of a baseline knowledge, so I think you should take intro to meteorology, especially if it's with Craig Ramsire. He's really one of the most fun professors I think I've ever had. He's just so chill. And he also, if you're interested in programming, then teaches specifically a weather programming class, which is really cool. Like if you also get hooked on weather, then you can apply more like computer science and programming into a topic that's really cool. And I think that could also show you how like programming can be applied to environmental things. It's not just like creating a website or things like that.
I can say, I mean, if I had to choose, I would probably say all classes, but wood enterprise is one that I think is really important. We get a lot of building construction majors in there, but it essentially is a class which runs as like a full-time business, and we'll have everyone in like marketing or finance or designing what kind of product that we'll be making, and we prototype it in the fall and then we execute it in the spring. So we've had chemistry majors before, building construction obviously help out in the wood workshop. We've had marketing or finance majors join us so that they can be in that department. And then I think taking maybe more of a fun class in CNRE, we have circular economy or pathways to packaging as like pathway classes option, so it would fulfill that requirement too. And then I know there's a geography of teas class, so something fun like that.
Geography of wine too. You like wine.
Didn't know if you like wine until you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say introduction to fish and wildlife management. I think that was a really fun class I took. It's taught by Dr. Kevin Hammond, and he just makes it really interesting and like engaging. And it's a very baseline, like, it's nothing too crazy. Like you can understand all the words in it. They don't say crazy things. And that was really interesting. And I know we were like, there's more to it than going outside, but if you can take dendrology, that one is really fun, and you learn 120 trees, so you can impress your friends. Pretty cool.
Yeah, so definitely an eclectic mix of majors and of classes. And I think one thing that might help too is if I just list off all the majors very quickly, just so that folks listening know about kind of the diversity we have. So we've got 4 different majors represented up here, you know, and we've talked about, you know, Mirabelle's in packaging and Vector's in sustainable biomaterials, Smriti's in environmental conservation and society, and Jess is in meteorology. Outside of that, we've got 7 more. So we've got geography, we've got fish and wildlife conservation, we've got environmental data science, environmental resource management, forestry, and water resources policy and management. So you can see whether it's just being in the woods in forestry, or whether it's working in water or with animals or fish, or looking at the earth as a whole in geography. There's a really eclectic mix. And so none of them are really well known to a lot of folks, and especially with APIDA's given encouragement to major in things like engineering and business and law and healthcare. How have y'all, what's been your experience pursuing these majors, kind of from a parental point of view, as you move through the CNRE? What have been some of your experiences with that?
Well, one thing that really helped my parents be like, okay, that's cool, we can do that. Was I take a lot of the same math classes as the engineering students, like Calc 1 and 2 and DPQ and linear algebra, and I also had to take calc-based physics. So I was in there with a bunch of engineering people, and they'd be like, what are you majoring in? And I'd be like, oh, meteorology. And they'd be like, okay, like they'd be a little confused because it's mostly engineering people and it's like readout courses. So it is kind of hard, but my parents were like, oh, you're doing math still? Okay, you can do it. So as long as I was doing STEM and was like using my brain, you know, as long as I was STEM based, they were pretty okay with that.
I feel like my parents have always kind of been like, you can do whatever you want as long as like you have a plan, or like, I don't know, like they would let me cut my hair however, as long as I didn't complain. So it was kind of the same thing. But I think they really like that environmental like conservation and especially sustainability is such a big thing now. Not so much anymore, but it's still like a lot of companies have like a sustainability officer, stuff like that. And people are trying to make just a better conscious effort. So I think they were like, there's a lot of job prospects and like it's a newer like forming industry. So they were okay with it. But definitely I totally understand why some parents are a little hesitant, but there's jobs, so.
I would say for me, I was always interested in the environment, and I did have the experience where it was like my parents definitely wanted me to either go into environmental engineering or environmental law. So I actually got into Virginia Tech under environmental policy and planning, but I attended a session with John Gray and learn about sustainable biomaterials. And what helped convince my parents to let me switch over was, one, the department and John Gray in particular were very prepared. He gave me a 4-year plan of all the classes. And I think that helped reassure my dad to know that, oh, there is a set plan and there are advisors who will help. And the second thing that helps a lot is we have our Director of Employer Relations, John Freeborn, in our department, and his full-time job is to help us find careers and internships. So John Gray had listed off that, you know, you can meet with him anytime. He'll send out like weekly or bi-weekly newsletters. There's a job board. We have our own career fair. So I think job security was always the biggest concern, but it's like there's so many jobs, and especially with S-Bio and like with packaging, a lot of these jobs tend to be the same jobs that engineers end up getting after graduation as well. I just think we have a better, easier route in my biased opinion. And we have a lot of engineering majors sometimes switch over to our department as well. So I'm still going to probably end up taking like a master's or engineering path after graduation. It's just more towards my interest in the environmental field.
I think also like the CNRE like ranking definitely helped my
Yeah.
parents. Like they saw, I think it was number 2 at the time, but we're number 1 now. So they were like, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, that does help a lot. I think that can alleviate a lot of concerns. And so I hear y'all talk about transferable skills in classes, right, being something that helped out a lot, and also career plans. You know, having a solid set of career plans in a field that is really important and that does have a whole lot of, I guess, skin in the career game. And so Becker was talking about John Freeborn and all that he does. And so maybe this is stressful for some of you seniors, or maybe it's a little less stressful for you not seniors, but what are you looking towards in the future? What kind of jobs are y'all applying for, hoping to get one day?
For me, my like concentration in my major is environmental education and outreach stuff. So definitely looking into that. I'm applying to a couple nonprofits. I worked at one last summer or 2 summers ago. I worked at Trees Atlanta and I just really loved it. Like it's a very, I don't know, it's a very grassroots organization, and I think that is definitely something I'm more into. I'm hoping to do my master's at some point, but I need a break from school, so gonna try to work a little bit, make a little money, and then come back hopefully with like a new plan of like if I want to focus on something else or go more like field work heavy. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I think for me, well, my current plan is to probably do a master's after graduation, but considering our major has like 4 different tracks, I think you can go anywhere from like law to engineering. So maybe sustainability consultant kind of. I think I'm personally trying to do a master's and narrow down more on the like engineering designing side of it, and probably get more into like sustainable product designing.
Well, I'm not graduating yet, but I've kind of looked at kind of not every, because there's so many paths you could take with meteorology and finding a career, but I've looked at a lot of different ones. Like I've toured the National Weather Service office, I've toured 2 TV stations. I met with Ashley Ballard, who runs a private company. She's a CEO now, and I've sort of like looked at the different options and like I've tried out a couple different things, and this summer I have an internship with AccuWeather, so I will be at a private company in Kansas. You know, so I'll see really good storm structures, so that's exciting, but it is Kansas. And so I think that's kind of the route I'm leaning more towards. I thought about grad school, but I also like,
I need a break.
yeah,
I get it.
it's been a, yeah, I love school most of the time, but definitely need a break, so definitely looking to make some money, and if I want to come back, I'll have some funds to do so, yeah.
Exciting. So I want to talk about a couple other majors that I think are especially related to folks in the room, especially with computer science and even some math, kind of. So we see a lot of our students, so especially from packaging and sustainable biomaterials, those are 2 majors, like Rebecca said, that are filled with a lot of engineers. Engineers switch out of whatever track they're in engineering and find those 2 kind of more applied versions of engineering. And then we also have so meteorology, like Jess was talking about, does have a whole lot of engineering-based math and physics classes, which can be attractive to some folks. And also, environmental data science is arguably the most closely related to computer science in our college. And it's basically a lot of stuff that Smriti does. So being outside in the woods, you know, understanding plants and trees and forests and animals and how they all interact in their habitats. But then you kind of take that and you look at the big data side of things. And so you're working in really large databases, you're using really kind of innovative technology, things like drones and LiDAR and other remote sensing technologies, kind of encompassed in the world of geographic information systems, or GIS, which is what Jess is minoring in, right? Yeah, one of your minors. And so that's all encompassed in it. And then you also learn 2 or 3 programming languages, and you code a whole lot. And that coding is really applied to environmental analysis. So that's a really great major for students who care about the environment, but also really like to be inside working on a computer with technology. That's kind of one that we have that pairs really well with those 2 interests. So yeah, there's a whole lot of diversity, not just that's represented in the majors in the room, but really a lot of the majors that we have are unique in that sense. They pull from a lot of other majors as well.
There is someone in the chat who asked,
Oh, great.
can you talk about some of your favorite jobs, internships in the past?
I, one of my favorite, I guess, internships it was with a foundation in India, but I was doing it virtually. And it had more of a connection, I think, to water resources, but I essentially looked at like, and I think it's especially relevant now at like all the different programs that India is employing to help with water supply. I think, it's incredibly important to have clean water. And so it was a really fun internship to do, to look at like like how is India working on like better supplying water everywhere or better conserving water. And I think it even applied to parts of my major because I had a nature-based enterprise class later in the year, and we had rainwater management solutions show up because a lot of some of the sustainable biomaterial students can also go into like helping with stormwater drainage systems or rainwater management. And I got a chance to talk to them about like what their perspective is coming from a company that has worked with like big name colleges and everywhere or on installing rainwater like management systems. So that was an interesting one.
Well, last summer, I guess not really an internship, but I fulfilled my fieldwork requirement for my major. I went on the Hokie Storm Chase, which is a 2-week long road trip basically, where you look at weather patterns and identify locations of severe weather. And then you just drive over to that location and either wait or chase a storm. And so I did that. I learned a lot of valuable skills. I made connections with National Weather Service forecasters, as well as Alex Thornton, who's like he storm chases. He's really, really cool. And I think that experience made me like my application for the internships I applied to for next summer. I think it helped me stand out and like show that I have skills like in real time working in the field. So, yeah.
I've always wanted to take that class. I think for me, definitely that Trees Atlanta one I talked about. It was like, my title was environmental educator, but it was kind of like a camp counselor situation. But it was really interesting because they gave us a lot of free rein in like making the content that we taught. It was a lot more like hands-on and like really like I got to put my knowledge from school to like in real life situations, and like from week to week I could see what worked with kids, what didn't, what really like got them interested, and like how to teach environmental stuff like at different levels, because it's so important that people understand things and it's accessible to them. But that is like a learning process, trial and error, and like it involved a lot of being outside, which I loved. So definitely I think that one, I'm applying to one of their other jobs later this summer, so hopefully I get that also. We'll see. But yeah, I really love that one.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll kind of pose a follow-up. So y'all have done some cool stuff outside of classes, but often CNRE is called the college field trips because we're able to go outside, and it's not just outside, but kind of do experiential learning in the classroom. So have y'all felt that kind of experience that you've been able to gain while you're taking classes? It doesn't just have to be a summer internship or something like that. Have y'all felt that way? And do you have maybe like an example that you could talk about and experience in the classroom that could even help you with that internship down the road or the job in the future? Like any labs
You
you've
guys-
taken?
I have,
or-
yeah, I have a lot of labs, but you guys haven't.
Well, leading up to the storm chase, you have a couple classes you need to take, which is weather analysis 1 and 2 and severe weather. So you take those 2 classes to prepare you for the storm chase, because that helps you identify the patterns and throughout the different levels of the atmosphere. There are different things you need to look for and different like variables that come into play. So those things or those classes really help prepare me for the storm chase and like help me be a valuable member of the team. And I wasn't just sitting in the van being like proud, like it really was very helpful. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I learned this in the classroom. This is what a tornado signature looks like. you can actually see them, you can see the velocity, you can see the rubble, things like that, and that was really helpful for the storm chase. And then I went to AMS this past winter. Yes.
What is AMS?
AMS is the American Meteorological Society Conference, and they hold this big conference. It was the 105th annual meeting. I'm pretty sure. I hope I'm right on that. And when I was talking to new people, potential employers, just making connections, that was something I was able to bring up and connect with people about who also really like severe weather and things like that.
I think for me, one of the like field trips that I took that really stood out, it was for my, can't remember the exact title, but it was for my capstone class for my minor. So it was about like water resource, like planning, management, policy and all of that stuff. And we took like, we didn't really go very far. We took a van all around Virginia Tech's campus and we like looked at like drainage sinks and like stuff that Virginia Tech is like working on to make our campus like more like environmentally safe and like use the resources, like we get a lot of rain, use that in like a productive way rather than just like shoving it off the mountains. And it was really interesting to see like things that I just kind of pass by and I don't think are that interesting when I'm just like trying to run to class, are actually like intentional, make a lot of sense and like what they do. There's like lots of little ponds around that you probably wouldn't even notice unless it rains and they're like full up. But that was really cool. It was a nice little field trip.
I would say for me, in the department, I think there's a lot of experiential learning opportunities. I got a chance to do a study abroad trip to Ireland over spring break, so I was lucky where I didn't have to miss any classes or be set back or anything of that sort. I just got to go over spring break, so that was a beautiful experience to get to go to Ireland and learn a whole lot about their culture, their history, the environment there, and then I would say like any of my classes, it's not just theoretical, there's always an applied part. So the introductory class, like I said, everyone gets a chance to actually work in the wood workshop, which is great too, because you can always add it to your resume as an added like experience or qualification you have to work in the wood workshop. Then there's circular economy class, so you get a chance to like take apart some technology or some kind of product and see different parts of it and try to see what could be reused and what isn't. There's the mechanics class where we're building a bridge. Wood enterprise is a big one for experiential learning because you get to take like a manager's position essentially if you want to and take lead on like some aspect of the product that is being made. And that product is going to go on a website and go live. So there's always like tons of experience you get there. That's also like great for the resume.
We can spend hours talking about it.
Yeah.
So natural resources, all of the, I guess, misunderstandings about the majors aside, has been for a long time a white male dominated career field. Environmental studies in general have been the same way. So folks who don't fall into that category are often pushed to the side, often don't have their voices heard all throughout all the things we're talking about. And that's changing slowly but surely, right? So it's super important. And so we want to know if y'all feel like you belong in the college. If you do, tell us some of the ways that you've felt that, some of the ways that you've seen the College of Natural Resources make a space for students to feel they belong.
I mean, I feel like all the professors are definitely very welcoming. And a lot of them, like a good amount of them are white men, but there's a lot of other diversity. But like no one ever really makes you feel like you're not part of the team. And a lot of times, like, I don't know, the classes itself are diverse, so you feel less like alienated. You don't feel very like out of place. And we also have, I'm not too sure of her exact title right now.
Yeah.
That's kind of a little iffy right now, but Dr. Miriam Kamran, she's like our I don't wanna say
She
something
supports our
wrong.
students.
Yeah, she supports our
And-
students, and she has definitely been really welcoming and like, just her presence in the college, I think really helps people feel like they have a place, and like, again, I feel like being able to do stuff like this is definitely a lot more effort than a lot of other schools are putting out to make their students feel welcome, so I've never really felt anything, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've never really felt out of place. Um, from the very moment I like got here, I also joined Mosaico, which is the international live and learn community. So I was already surrounded by like a lot of diversity and a lot of people from different places who spoke a lot of different languages. And with CNRE, they had a lot of social events. So once you come in as a freshman, you immediately get to meet people in your major. Before the classes even start, you get to meet your professors in a very casual setting. And so immediately I felt very welcomed. Last night, actually, the meteorology club had a women's dinner. So we basically invited all of the women in our club to come together and to have a conversation and to make connections so that once we do go out into the workforce, we already have like kind of a network to ourselves of women in the field and people we can reach out to.
I would say, well, first of all, I never feel like I don't belong in the department. I think, there's a lot of diversity in any of the classes I go to, not just with undergraduate students, but graduate students as well specifically. But there's also just noticing from the classes and what we are taught, a lot of our professors themselves have a lot of experience and chances that they have gotten to go abroad or still continue to go abroad. Like a lot of my professors have definitely visited India, or I know there's a professor who do like service work kind of in collaboration with CNRE, where they go to Nepal every summer. So they have a lot of experience as well. And then I always just feel like having a different perspective of anything or with just because of culture has been more of a strength than a weakness, especially in this field, because I personally come from India and I moved here like a bunch of years ago, but I've seen it as a more of a strength because when we talk about sustainability or how it's applied here or how it's being applied, I can always offer my different perspective and see how different I viewed sustainability previously. And I found that professors are very accepting of that and even appreciate learning more things from a different perspective.
Yeah, and what's really awesome about Dr. Kamran is that she comes from a field of natural resources. So she has experience, right, being a brown woman in natural resources doing field work, right? And she's able to support our students with these personal lived experiences, which is really great. And I think that she has an open door policy as well as most of our faculty. So I think that kind of supplements everything that these folks have talked about. Do we have any questions online or in the room?
I think manners would be a good thing to talk about too.
Yeah, do you want to talk about it?
You can talk about it. I don't remember the full name. I've
Um,
only been to a couple meetings.
Yeah, so, yeah, Shmriti said that manners is another way that our students feel supported. So manners is an acronym and it stands for Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources and Related Science. So, yeah, that's not just a Virginia Tech organization, that's a national organization. And so many of our students are affiliated with Manners and we have our own chapter here at Virginia Tech. And that really even expands into high school. There's a junior manners event that we host on campus where our students and our faculty will interact with students in that program as they're looking to move into natural resources and looking to see how diversity is affecting the things that they're going to study and how they can find a sense of belonging. So Manners does a whole lot of stuff in terms of student support. They help students find scholarships and financial aid opportunities. They do all sorts of different programming and professional development events for our students. And they also attend a National Manners Conference every year, which is a really great opportunity to network and do some more professional development, but also kind of just build that sense of belonging in that community in your own college, in the College of Natural Resources, but also in related sciences, right? And agriculture, like it's in the name. So manners is another really big, more well-known way that our college can help students feel that they belong. It's a good one. Yeah, any questions?
No
So far?
questions in the chat.
Okay.
But, I do, unless, do you have one?
I have one.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, I had heard a little bit of how like you talked about like your parents and how like it related to your major and like how like they felt. How about you yourself personally? Did you like see yourself always going into the major you had planned on, or was it a thing of there was like a certain experience that encouraged you to go into that major? Because you'd also talked about how a lot of engineers also switched majors. Were you one of those people, or was it something like a different story?
I would say for me, I definitely thought I would go into computer science because that's kind of what's expected of me as well, I think. But just moving from India had offered me such a different perspective that I felt like I wanted to go in the environment. And I think I always knew I wanted to do something along the lines of renewability or sustainability. I just didn't I didn't think I would find the major for it. And that's why I think I initially planned to go into environmental policy and society, but then I heard a sustainable biomaterials ambassador talk in that open house that I was in. And I was like, this is exactly what I've been wanting to do, but I didn't know how to put it, and I didn't know there was a major for it. So I think once I joined, it was definitely the feeling of, oh, all of this, I love every class that I'm taking and I enjoy being in this major.
Mine was kind of similar. I have always grown up loving being outside, and my grandparents were farmers, so I've always kind of been used to that. And I took part in a lot of environmental programming when I was younger. But I didn't really think it was a career until I took AP environmental science in high school, and I was like, wait, this is kind of cool. You can have a job in this. So that really pushed me to apply to colleges. And then I thought environmental science was the term all along. And then I looked at the environmental science major here, which is in our agriculture and life sciences college. And it's really cool. It's a lot of soil science, chemistry, which I realized very quickly was not for me. So I looked into CNRE, and I really liked that conservation and society was a lot more all encompassing. So I think it was just a matter of you have to dig a little bit. Like you said, there is a major for you, and it's probably hidden, and you have to read the description under. It's not just in the name engineering. Yeah.
For me, I mean, I always liked weather. We took a cloud class in second grade. Clouds, but honestly, I didn't really think about pursuing it. I saw people on TV, weather broadcasters, and told my grandma I was gonna be one because British people like the weather, and my grandma was British. It was a thing. But anywho, throughout high school, I kind of just didn't really know what I wanted to do because thinking about it really stressed me out because I was like, no, that's my whole future. Well, I don't want to talk about that. I'm just gonna go with the flow. And then I got to applying for stuff, and I was like, I still kind of don't know. So I was actually admitted into tech under a different major, but I went to a CNRE. I think I actually went to their Pokey Focus. I didn't go to whatever I was assigned to. It was who cares? And I met Dave Carroll, who helped start the program of meteorology here. And I learned about it, and I was like, oh, this is a good career. This is a really good option, and I think I'd be really interested in it. And so I immediately switched into meteorology, and I've been really happy ever since. So sometimes all it takes is honestly one person to really open your eyes and see all of the different possibilities and how cool something is.
Someone in the chat asked, are there any specific environmental designs that you've worked on that stand out in your time at Tech?
I think
Sounds
that's a
like an
question for
Becker
you.
question.
the question is environmental design.
Yeah,
Okay.
specific environmental designs. that you like.
I feel like I'm promoting the wood enterprise class a lot, but yeah, the class essentially like will work to make a product out of or design a product out of sustainable material in the fall semester. And then we prototype it through fall semester and then sell it in the spring semester. This year, it's a custom engraved graduation plaque made out of cherry, like 5x7. And I think that definitely stands out to me because I just remember prototyping it on the engraver over and over and over last semester, and then just seeing it come to like life, I guess, and like physically having it and actually see that people are ordering it and actually making a plaque for them and packaging it and selling it. That stands out in my mind a lot, and I think packaging especially, I think they do a lot of, like, they have cool classes like principles of packaging, and they'll go in like hands-on and make like packages on their own, and I've seen some prototypes of it, and I think that's really cool. They have a 3D printer now, so they can like print anything. They have like a trebuchet printed out for our major fair, so
No other questions in the chat so far? Min, do you have?
No.
No. Uh,
Do you have one, Dr. Howard?
I did, I think, identity is so important, especially now when I think unfortunately some people want to erase identities. How do you see yourself sort of reflected in, the courses that you've taken or the work that you're doing or how you want to sort of present yourself sort of in the future? Just in terms of, sort of representation, I think is really important too, right? You can't, you don't always, know what you want to do until you sort of see it reflected in others, right? And so how does that work in terms of a CNRE sort of major as well? As you were saying, it's slowly evolving, but there's probably still not as many Dr. Camerons out there as there should be, right? And so how do you want to sort of reflect it forward?
I think for me, I don't know if this is exactly the answer, but it definitely is a class that, or two classes I've taken by Dr. Luke Duran. He does a lot of water resources stuff and he works a lot in India. He travels back and forth pretty often. And I've really enjoyed both of his classes that I've taken because he really like gives us real life case studies. Like I worked on this is how it impacted like this community in India. This is like what we did. And he talks a lot about like making sure it's not just like a temporary band-aid and like it's something that like the community can keep up after. Especially like if it's a community with not a lot of resources and like outside aid is helpful in theory, but if the upkeep is insanely expensive, that's just not a viable solution. So I think like a lot of my professors will use those real life case studies and like examples and their research and like put it into perspective more than just like what we do in the United States. Like obviously there are a lot of communities like Flint, where water is a really big issue, but a lot of times we don't really think outside of our little bubble in here. And it's very easy to get wrapped up in that. So I think, hopefully with what I do in the future, I'll like try to make sure like other perspectives are put into play and like understood. Just because it was very interesting to see like he worked on a project where I'm from in India and I was like, I've seen that, like, that's really cool to like hear about it and know like we're working on it and there's a lot of ways to do it. Like making sure everything is well made and well developed and thought of. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
I'd say for me, well, one thing that helps a lot is the professors definitely have a very open perspective. A lot of the classes never really feel like we're just being taught. It feels like they're learning from us as well, which for me was very like surprising to know because these are professors with PhDs who have been in their fields for so long, and they probably know a lot more than I will for that field, but they're always open to just having like an open perspective to everything, especially in circular economy. I feel like my perspective of coming from India has helped a lot into looking at like how circular economy works here with products versus if it was a service-based system, which I feel like applies to India a lot. And I've found that my professors are actually very open to hearing about it and like talking about it. Any of the alumni that usually come in to talk to our classes are very open to hearing about it as well. And then I think I'm lucky, and like our department has like so many opportunities that I've been lucky to have opportunities like being in a video for the Wood Enterprise class, or being in a podcast episode for one of my other classes, or opportunities like that where I can also present myself for the people who are coming in. And I think actually being an ambassador helps with that a lot too, because I'm gonna be honest, a lot of Indians definitely want to go the engineering or law or doctor route. And I think it helps to see another person of color, or another person there like them who is in this field, and see how successful they are in this field, and know that they can also come in and be successful.
For me, I've taken geography of wine and geography, just world geography, which has taught me a lot about like how different countries interact and their relationships, and through wine too, like grapes and how they travel around and all the different cultures behind it. But I think, well, weather happens everywhere, so what I'm learning in the classroom, I can kind of take and apply to different areas, kind of anywhere in the world. But more so with, I took a modeling and GIS course, and with like risk assessment, I learned how to gather data and really pinpoint areas that might have more, more risk for natural disaster, like in Japan, like the earthquakes and the troughs and things like that. I think GIS is really worldwide and really helps connect us by helping us help each other. And I think that that's really useful in just keeping us connected and informed.
That's a very geography department answer of you. I'm a
Yeah.
fan. Yeah, that's a really great question. Were there any others before we close out? I think I've got one more to end with, but want to open it up to anyone else.
Sure.
You ask a question. I I know that you're going to Kansas and it might be like predominantly white. Do you feel like you guys might be like feel like singled out in your jobs when you go into the field?
I am a little nervous because, like you said, it's Kansas. I actually visited there over spring break, and I maybe saw one Asian. I don't know. Like it was, yes, it was very white. But actually um at the location I'm going for AccuWeather, there's actually a Hokie alumni there. She graduated, I think maybe 2-3 years ago. And so I reached out to her on LinkedIn. I got her number. We've been texting. So I feel a little better in that way, knowing like there is a Hokie out there. And I'm going to be staying in the dorms where other interns will also be from like all around. And so I think that that'll be nice, and I'll get to meet people my age from like wherever, probably going through the same experience that I am and being in a new place. So I am a little nervous in that way, but I feel like I'm gonna be okay. I came to college once. I can go to college like somewhere else, and I think I can survive.
I mean, I don't really know how my future will look, but it definitely is like pretty white, but like Rebecca said, like, I think it is important to just kind of hold your ground and like be that person for someone else. Like, it's a little bit awkward, but like if you push through, like you know what you're talking about. you know why you're there, so. You shouldn't be really too worried, but I definitely get it. It is scary. I've worked at a lot of places where everyone is white and it is a little bit, you feel very, very different, but it's important to push through and just kind of, you know, I guess be that person for someone else.
That's a really great question. And Rebecca, did you have one to say to that?
I guess, yeah, I was just gonna go off what I have said previously. As uncomfortable as it feels sometimes to be the only person of color there, it feels nice sometimes in other spaces as well to know like you're not like essentially starting something, but like you're there. Then like sometimes it's like it's good to know like even for you guys, it's like you can tell yourself at least that, you know, I am at least doing this. And I think that's like a brave step forward to take. And like at some point, you know, you can, if there isn't a community, you can try building or forming a community. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. Those are really great answers. And it kind of leads into at least my last panel question. You talk about being that person for someone else, right? I mean, all of you kind of said that and staying strong in what you know and why you're where you're at. And that's super important. But it's scary, right? Like you said. And so, you know, for people who are coming up in the field of natural resources who aren't white men, right, and who come from diverse backgrounds and who might be feeling some of the same feelings that y'all have felt and are feeling, or to your younger self, right, and someone who's very similar to you in your younger self's shoes, what would you tell somebody coming into natural resources who has this interest, who's scared? What would you tell that person? This is like a
I know, that was a tough one.
that's a
Yeah.
hopefully not too deep, but
I mean, I've definitely noticed like just in general, having that different perspective, again, like you said, it gives you not an edge up, but it gives you another perspective that is really important. And a lot of times, like, I don't know, like I've really noticed every time I go back to India, like water, like, you know, people are a lot more conscious about it. People reuse things, like it's a very different system. So a lot of times, like other countries, a lot more sustainable. So you get to bring that in. So like you know what you're talking about, the way your family does things is probably already a lot more sustainable than most people do things here. Like every time I take like a carbon footprint quiz or like water footprint quiz, like my family's is always like well below the average. So I think just like you know what you're talking about and like you do have an interesting different perspective. So like just like feel confident in that and you know other people might relate. So it's always a good thing to stay strong in what you know.
I would say, I guess to my younger self or anyone coming in would just be like, let your passion drive you to where you want to go. Because if I didn't, I think, listen to my passion or let that fuel me, I would be in the computer science department. No offense to anyone in computer science. I personally cannot, like, I don't like coding, but just like let your passion drive you, because I think like for as uncomfortable as I would feel, I think I have a lot more excitement for what I'm learning or going to learn. And then, yeah, just like, I think if we're all in CNRE, I think everyone wants to make a change, but especially in CNRE, we definitely want to make a change. Like we have a big concern for the environment. So I feel like I let that fuel me more to be like, I have to stay logged in here and make sure I come out of this and do something to make a difference, which is what I'm aiming to do.
I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, being here for Hurricane Helene and seeing the like immense damage that happened, Meteorology Club went to Giles County and helped with some cleanup efforts. And I just think that when you're able to see the difference you make in the world, it makes you feel like what is the word? Like it kind of like lights a fire in you. Yeah, it really like makes you feel like you're making a difference or like the 2011 tsunami, there's this organization in Japan that took like the broken pottery from the houses or like from the areas that were hit really hard. They took something so sad and so like terrible and made jewelry out of the broken pottery pieces and sold that to help with like relief and things like that. So when you're able to really see how communities come together from big events such as tsunamis or hurricanes or tornadoes, and it really makes you feel good about the work that you're doing, even if physics takes the life force out of you. Once you pop out the other end, it's like, okay, now that that's over, I can really focus in and understand the parts that apply to my major, and that will help me help others in the future.
That's awesome. I don't have anything else. If anyone has questions, I think we're happy to answer those.
Last questions in the chat for now. CNE. My last question to you, because I listened to NPR a lot. And one of the things that they were talking about were people who are in environmental sustainability and sort of environmental science, and saying that many people are now going abroad. Just because of, just all of the cuts that are happening here. Do you all envision yourselves maybe also going abroad to do the work that you're doing if, work just isn't around here? Or are you willing to stick it out and find a way to also, work in the US?
I don't know. I think as of right now, I'm probably gonna just try to stick it out and like see what I can do here. But I definitely like after like getting through like some of my more advanced classes and like talking to professors who've done like really cool research abroad, I definitely do think it's a lot more interesting to me now. Maybe like when I come back to grad school, I wanna go abroad and try some new things out, but I don't know. I feel like there's definitely still work to be done here. But it is really interesting to go abroad. I don't want to like flee, but I do think that there is important work to be done elsewhere.
I would say in a broader sense, I've always had a plan to not like go abroad somewhere permanently, but to travel around, because I feel like whatever knowledge I gather and whatever I learn and however I implement it shouldn't just be limited to one area or region, but to like be spread out everywhere else, especially in like low-income communities or places where they don't have funding. But for masters, I have been considering abroad and I most likely will apply. But something my mom brought up, which was a good point, was that even if I choose to leave from here for masters, there's still all these professors who are in these programs here who are very, very passionate about the work they do and who are sticking here and they're fighting for their department and the work they do. And they need to see students who are just as passionate and willing to study with them and learn with them and stick it through. And after everything that will happen and we come out of it, this country and in general, I feel like in the route we're going, the world will need more help than ever in environmental and sustainable matters. So I guess in that regard, I will most likely stay here and stick it through because the professors are sticking it through. So.
I agree. I probably will stay and stick it through. I have another year or so until I graduate, so it'll be interesting to see what changes, if anything changes from now until when I graduate. I did go abroad last summer in a study abroad to Japan, and I think the best way to learn about a culture is to go immerse yourself. And I think that if I were to go abroad, I probably would, because I think when you're young, you don't have too many attachments yet. So getting to go abroad and work and see your impact, not just around you, but in other places with the knowledge that you gain, I think that that's a really amazing opportunity if you get it to take it.
Thank you, everybody. The people in the chat also, they say thank you, so. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to stop recording.
Please eat some pizza.